The Galactic historians had a name for them: the Silent Ones. Not because they were quiet, no, because they had stopped talking. For 3,000 years, the archives of the Celestial Compact had contained references to a species called humanity, a curious race from a yellow star system, remarkable only for their brief, violent existence. They had emerged into the galactic community with hope in their eyes and outstretched hands, seeking friendship, knowledge, trade. The Compact had welcomed them, for a time. But humans were problematic. They asked uncomfortable questions. They challenged established hierarchies. They refused to accept that some species were simply meant to rule, while others were meant to serve. Worse, they spread these ideas to other young civilizations, planting seeds of rebellion across dozens of worlds. So the Compact made a decision. It wasn't called genocide. The official records labeled it cultural realignment and necessary intervention. 17 human colonies were sterilized from orbit. Their home world, Earth, was quarantined behind an artificial quantum barrier, a prison that no ship could penetrate, no signal could escape. The humans could survive inside their cage. They could live, grow, even thrive. But they would never again trouble the ordered perfection of the Compact, and for 3,000 years it worked. Earth went silent. No transmissions, no escape attempts, no desperate pleas for mercy or justice. The Compact's surveillance buoys detected life inside the barrier. Cities still functioned. The civilization still existed. But the humans had seemingly accepted their fate. The younger species in the Compact eventually forgot about them entirely. To the older ones, humanity became a cautionary tale whispered during diplomatic training. This is what happens when you challenge the natural order. High Magistrate Vornis of the Compact Council had been in office for 6 centuries. He had overseen the integration of 43 species, arbitrated 700 wars, and maintained the peace that his predecessors had built over millennia. He was respected, feared, and utterly confident in the Compact's eternal supremacy. Which is why when his communications officer burst into his private chambers, mandibles clicking in panic, Vornis barely looked up from his meal. "This had better be critical," he said, indelicately slicing into a crystallized fruit from the Andara system. "Sir," the officer, a young Velcrin named Soth, was trembling. "The barrier. The quantum barrier around the Sol system." Vornis set down his utensil. "What about it?" "It's gone." The silence that followed was absolute. Vornis stood slowly, his 4 eyes widening. "That's impossible. The barrier was designed to last until the heat death of the universe. The energy requirements alone. They didn't break it from the outside, sir." Sayath's voice was barely a whisper. "They dissolved it from within." The emergency session of the Compact Council was the most chaotic gathering in recorded history. Representatives from all 87 member species packed the grand chamber, their voices creating a cacophony of fear and confusion. Vornis stood at the center podium, it waiting for silence. When it finally came, he spoke. 3 hours ago, the quantum barrier containing the Sol system ceased to exist. Long-range scans confirm that Earth and its colonies are intact. The human population is estimated at 17 billion. A ripple of shock moved through the chamber. When the barrier had been erected, Earth's population had been barely 4 billion. "How many ships?" someone called out. Vornis hesitated. "We don't know. The system is obscured, some kind of jamming field we've never encountered before." "Then send a probe." "We did." Vornis's voice was tight. 14 probes. All destroyed the moment they crossed into human space. No warnings, no communication. Just eliminated. "So they're hostile," growled Commander Thex of the Cranor Defense Fleet. On the reptilian warlord's crest flared red. "We caged them once. We can do it again." "Can we?" The voice belonged to Keeper Ellis, one of the Compact's oldest and wisest members. The ancient Lumari rarely spoke, but when she did, the council listened. "We imprisoned them 3,000 years ago with the best technology we had. What do you imagine they've been doing all this time?" The chamber fell silent. Ellis continued, her luminescent form pulsing softly. "We gave them 3,000 years of isolation, 3,000 years of anger, 3,000 years to prepare." She turned her gaze to Vornis. "I recommend immediate diplomatic outreach. Whatever they've become, we must not assume—" The main display screen flickered. Every eye in the chamber turned to it. The static cleared, revealing a human face. It was a man who looked like he had been carved from granite. He was older, with close-cropped white hair and a deep scar running from his temple to his jawline. He wore a simple black uniform with no visible insignia. His eyes were dark, heavy, and terrifyingly calm. When he spoke, his voice was like grinding stones. "Members of the Celestial Compact, my name is Fleet Admiral Silas Thorne of the United Terran Systems. You don't know me. You don't know my people anymore. But we remember you." Vornis found his voice. We wish to open diplomatic—" "We're not interested in diplomacy." Thorne's expression didn't change. 3,000 years ago, you decided we were too dangerous to exist freely. You murdered 17 billion of our people. Or you imprisoned the rest of us behind a wall of your own making." "That was a different council," Vornis said quickly. "Different leaders, different times. You can listen." Thorne's voice dropped an octave. "We spent 3 centuries trying to break your barrier. We failed, so we adapted. We evolved. We built a civilization inside our cage, and we waited." He leaned forward slightly. "Do you know what 3,000 years of waiting does to a species?" Silence. "It teaches patience," Thorne continued. "It teaches planning. Most importantly, it teaches you to never, ever trust anyone but yourselves." The display shifted, showing something that made Vornis's blood turn cold. Ships, thousands of them, tens of thousands, emerging from the darkness of space like a swarm of metallic locusts, being each one larger and more advanced than anything the Compact had ever fielded. "We're not here for revenge," Thorne said quietly. "We're here to make sure what you did to us never happens to anyone else ever again." The transmission cut. In the stunned silence that followed, Commander Thex stood. "We mobilize every fleet, every world, No." Keeper Ellis's voice was soft but firm. "We ran the simulations 3,000 years ago. Even then, even contained and limited, the humans showed a capacity for warfare that terrified our strategists." She turned her luminescent gaze to the viewing screen where the human armada had been displayed. "Now they've had 3 millennia to perfect it. We cannot win this war." "Then what do you suggest?" Vornis demanded. "Prayer," Ellis said simply, "but that they meant what they said about not seeking revenge." "My name is Kalen Vross. I'm a junior analyst for the Compact Strategic Intelligence Division, or at least I was. Everything I'm about to tell you is classified at the highest level. When this is over, if any of us survive, I'll probably be executed for treason just for recording it. But someone needs to document what really happened. Someone needs to bear witness." The Compact's official response to the human emergence was what you'd expect. Mobilize the defense fleets, activate emergency protocols, fortify key systems. Standard procedure for a Class 5 existential threat. What the public didn't know was that we'd already lost. I was stationed at Monitor Station Theta 9, one of 50 deep space listening posts scattered throughout Compact space. Our job was simple. Watch, listen, record. We were the Compact's eyes and ears. 2 days after Admiral Thorne's transmission, we detected the first human ship entering our sensor range. It was massive. The computer estimated it at 12 kilometers long, 3 times the size of our largest dreadnought. It moved with impossible grace for something so large, like a predator gliding through water. "Should we hail them?" asked Petty Officer Sornax, his tentacles twitching nervously. Our commander, Captain Dreln, was a veteran of 40 campaigns. I'd never seen him afraid before that moment. "No," he said quietly. "Just watch." We watched. The human ship didn't acknowledge us. It simply continued on its trajectory, moving deeper into compact space. Within an hour, our long-range sensors picked up 2 more ships. Then 5, then 20. They were everywhere. "Captain," I said, my voice cracking slightly. "They're not attacking anyone, they're just passing through." Dreln nodded slowly. "They're deploying, taking positions." "For what?" He didn't answer. Over the next 72 hours, we watched the impossible unfold. Human ships, hundreds, then thousands of them, spread throughout compact space like drops of ink in water. They didn't attack. They didn't threaten. They simply positioned themselves at key points throughout the galaxy. Every major trade route, every strategic choke point, every critical system. And then they waited. "It's a blockade," Dreln finally said. "They're cutting us off, system by system, world by world. But that would require—" I did the math in my head and felt my stomach drop. "That would require a fleet of at least 50,000 ships, or maybe more." "They've had 3,000 years," Dreln said quietly. Apparently they used the time well. 3 days after the deployment began, the Compact Council sent its first expeditionary fleet to confront the humans. Admiral Corthus led personally. 500 of our best warships, crews that had won a dozen major conflicts. We received the last transmission from Corthus's flagship exactly 17 minutes after engagement began. The message was simple. "They're not firing back. They're just dodging everything we—" Then static. 500 ships, elite crews, the pride of the compact military, gone in 17 minutes, and the humans hadn't fired a single shot. Later analysis of the debris field revealed what had happened. The human ships had used gravitational manipulation to redirect our weapons. Every missile, every plasma bolt, every kinetic round, all of it bent back toward our own fleet. The humans had made us destroy ourselves. That's when I understood. This wasn't a war. Wars required 2 sides fighting. This was an execution, and we were already dead. We just didn't know it yet. The interrogation room was small, sterile, and utterly terrifying. I sat across from a human for the first time in my life. His name was Colonel Marcus Reeves. He was younger than the Admiral, perhaps 40 standard years, but he had the same dangerous stillness. "You're not a prisoner," he said. His voice was surprisingly gentle. "You're a guest. You destroyed my station." My voice was shaking. "My crew is alive and unharmed aboard our medical frigate." Reeves slid a datapad across the table. "You can verify that if you'd like." I grabbed the datapad, desperate for proof. The manifest listed every member of Theta 9's crew, all accounted for, all listed as non-combatant refugees. "Why?" I asked. "Because they weren't our enemy," Reeves said simply. "Neither are you." "Then who is?" Reeves leaned back in his chair. "Tell me, Analyst Frost, what do you know about the Compact's founding?" I blinked at the non-sequitur. The standard history. 5 species came together 12,000 years ago to establish peace after the Great Collapse. They formed the Celestial Compact to prevent newer species from ever threatening them again, Reeves interrupted. "That's the real reason, isn't it? The Compact wasn't built on ideals of peace and cooperation. It was built on fear." I wanted to argue. I couldn't. Sir Reeves continued. When we first emerged into galactic society, we were optimistic, naive. We thought we were joining a community of equals. His expression hardened. Instead, we found a caste system, the founding species at the top, controlling everything. Newer species kept deliberately weak, prevented from advancing too quickly, all in the name of stability. We maintain order, I said weakly. You maintain control. Reeves stood, walking to the viewport. Beyond it, I could see the vast human fleet hanging in space. Do you know what we found 3,000 years ago, trapped behind your barrier? I shook my head. Purpose. He turned back to me. We couldn't leave. We couldn't expand. All we could do was grow inward. So we focused everything, every resource, every mind, every dream, on two goals: break the barrier and make sure no one could ever cage us again. He activated a holo display. I watched in horror as images flashed past. Human factories the size of moons, shipyards that stretched for thousands of kilometers, weapons I couldn't even begin to understand. We industrialized our entire system, Reeves said. We automated everything we could. We pushed our technology beyond anything you'd consider possible. And we did it all in complete secrecy, behind your perfect prison. This is insane. No. Reeves's voice was cold. Insane was thinking you could cage a species as stubborn as us and expecting us to just accept it. Insane was not considering what we'd become if you ever let us out. I felt tears running down my face. What do you want from us? The truth. Reeves sat back down. We've been monitoring compact communications. We know about the other species you've realigned. The Kavros, the Helenthi, the Marsh Collective, dozens of civilizations that asked the wrong questions or challenged the wrong traditions. My blood turned to ice. Those were the deepest, darkest secrets of the compact, classified beyond classified. What happened to them? Reeves asked quietly. I don't... You're an intelligence analyst, Vross. You have clearance. What happened to them? I closed my eyes. When I spoke, my voice was barely a whisper. Cultural sterilization. We preserved their populations but eliminated their leadership classes, rewrote their histories, made them believe they'd always been part of the compact, that they'd always been lesser. How many? 47 species. Over the last 9,000 years. Reeves was quiet for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice carried an ocean of sadness. Thank you for your honesty. What are you going to do to us? He looked at me with something that might have been pity. We're going to set you free. The broadcast went out to every inhabited world in the compact simultaneously. There was no way to block it, no way to stop it. The human technology was simply too advanced. Fleet Admiral Silas Thorne appeared on every screen, every display, every communication device across 87 species. People of the Celestial Compact, he began, you don't know us. Your governments have made sure of that. But we know you. We've been watching you for a very long time. On my datapad, I watched real-time analytics, or trillions of beings across the galaxy, all frozen in place, listening. 3,000 years ago, Thorne continued, the compact leadership decided that humanity was too dangerous to exist freely. They killed 17 billion of our people and imprisoned the survivors. But we weren't the first species they did this to. We weren't even the 10th. The display behind him lit up with names, species after species, each one marked with dates and clinical descriptions of what had been done to them. The compact has ruled through fear disguised as order, Thorne said. They've convinced you that some species are naturally meant to lead and others to follow, that questioning this system is dangerous, that stability requires sacrifice. He leaned forward, his scarred face filling the screens. But they lied to you. I watched Vornis's face on a secondary feed. The High Magistrate had gone pale, his 4 eyes wide with panic. "We're not here to conquer you," Thorne said. "We're not here to rule you. We're here to show you the truth and then let you decide what to do with it." The display changed, showing detailed schematics of compact control systems, genetic modification protocols used to keep lesser species docile, economic structures designed to prevent technological advancement, educational systems that taught submission as virtue. For the next 72 hours, Thorne continued, all compact control networks will be disabled. Your governments will have no special authority. Your fleets will be unable to fire their weapons. For 3 days, you will be truly free to communicate, to organize, and to decide your own futures. The chamber erupted in chaos as representatives screamed at each other, but Thorne's voice cut through it all. After 72 hours, we will withdraw to the Sol system. What you do then is up to you. Reform the compact into something actually worth preserving. Dissolve it entirely. Build something new. We don't care. His expression softened slightly, just for a moment. We just want to make sure that what was done to us is never done to anyone else ever again. The transmission ended. For a moment, there was absolute silence. Then every datapad in the chamber began pinging simultaneously. Messages from across the compact, from worlds that had been silent for centuries, from species that had been told they were too primitive to have opinions, or from billions of beings who suddenly realized they had a voice, and they were angry. Keeper Ellis turned to Vornis. "You have 72 hours to evacuate this station. I suggest you use them wisely." The High Magistrate started to protest, but she simply walked away. I watched it all unfold from my quarters aboard the human ship. Colonel Reeves had been true to his word. I wasn't a prisoner. I could access their communications, watch their operations, even speak to their crew. What I saw terrified and amazed me in equal measure. The humans weren't behaving like conquerors. They weren't gloating or celebrating. They were simply methodical. Ships moving into position. Systems being monitored. The massive fleet holding perfect formation, ready for any threat but hoping not to use their weapons. "Oi, why are you doing this?" I asked Reeves when he came to check on me. He was quiet for a moment, looking out at the stars. 3,000 years ago, we begged for help. We pleaded with the compact to see reason, to judge us as individuals rather than as a threat. No one listened. He turned to me. "We don't want revenge, Vros. We want to make sure the next species that asks for help gets a different answer than we did." "But you could rule the galaxy. Your technology, your fleet, could turn us into exactly what we're fighting against," Reeves interrupted. "Power corrupts. We learned that lesson the hard way, watching our own history. That's why we're leaving after this is over. We'll maintain the Sol system, defend our space, maybe trade with whoever wants to trade with us. But we're not building an empire. The compact will try to rebuild. Maybe they'll even succeed, but it won't be the same compact. Too many people have seen the truth now. Too many questions have been asked." He smiled slightly. "Sometimes the most revolutionary thing you can do is simply tell the truth and step back." The 72 hours changed everything. Without compact control networks, the floodgates opened. Species that had been silent for millennia began talking to each other directly. Evidence of manipulation, suppression, and outright atrocity spread like wildfire through the galactic communication networks. The Kavros rediscovered their original history. They hadn't been primitive nomads who needed compact guidance. They'd been poets, artists, or philosophers whose culture had been systematically erased because it promoted individualism over collectivism. The Helenthi found records proving their ancestors had been on the verge of developing faster-than-light travel, when Compact advisors sabotaged their research and convinced them they were too warlike to be trusted with such technology. The Marsh Collective learned that their entire religion, which taught obedience to the Compact as a divine mandate, had been fabricated by Compact psychological operations teams, species after species after species. The same pattern, repeated across thousands of years. And the humans just watched, silent guardians holding the door open while the galaxy discovered the truth about its own history. On the third day, Vornis requested a meeting with Fleet Admiral Thorne. He agreed. I was there when they spoke. The High Magistrate looked like he'd aged a century in 3 days. His ornate robes hung loose on his frame, his 4 eyes dull with exhaustion. "What do you want?" he asked simply. "To humiliate us? To watch us tear ourselves apart?" "No," Thorne said. "I want you to understand what you did. Not just to us, but to everyone." "The Compact brought stability." "The Compact brought stagnation," Thorne interrupted. "You created a galaxy where progress was a threat, where questioning was dangerous, where entire civilizations were pruned like garden hedges to fit your aesthetic of order." He leaned forward. "You're not evil, Magistrate. You're just old. Old and scared and so convinced of your own righteousness that you couldn't see the horror you were perpetrating." Vornis was silent for a long time. But when he spoke, his voice was barely audible. "What happens now?" "That's not up to me," Thorne said, "or you. For the first time in 12,000 years, it's up to everyone else." The meeting ended. 24 hours later, the Compact officially dissolved. Not through violence or war, but through simple irrelevance. The member species had found their voices, and those voices were saying, "No more." In its place, something new began to emerge. A loose confederation of independent systems, bound not by force or tradition, but by mutual interest and respect. They called it the Galactic Assembly. Humans were invited to join. Admiral Thorne politely declined. "We appreciate the offer," he told the Assembly's first meeting, "but we've learned our lesson about getting involved in galactic politics. We'll trade with you, share knowledge. We'd even fight alongside you if you're threatened. But we won't rule you, and we won't let you rule us." He paused. "Besides, we have a lot of rebuilding to do. 3,000 years of isolation left scars that technology can't heal. We need time to figure out who we are now, free from the cage." The Assembly accepted this. They had no choice, really. The human fleet remained the most powerful force in the galaxy, and everyone knew it. But unlike the Compact, the humans had proven they didn't want to use that power for domination. Fear was a powerful deterrent. But respect was stronger. 5 years have passed since the Compact fell. I'm still aboard the human ship, by choice now. They offered to return me to my people, but I declined. There was nothing left for me there. The Velcrin had fragmented into 3 separate factions, on each claiming to represent the true legacy of our species. I didn't recognize any of them. Instead, I've become something between an ambassador and a historian. I document what I see, share it with the Assembly, help bridge the gap between human and alien perspectives. It's strange work, necessary work. Today, I'm standing on the observation deck of the UTS Remembrance, watching Earth rotate slowly below us. It's my first time seeing the human homeworld. It's beautiful, blue and green and white, wreathed in clouds. Colonel Reeves stands beside me. He's older now, grayer. Retirement suits him. "Hard to believe we spent 3,000 years locked in a cage around this little rock," he says. "Do you regret it?" I ask. "The isolation, I mean. What it cost you?" Reeves is quiet for a long time. "Every day," he finally says. "We lost so much. Art, culture, diversity of thought. 3,000 years of humanity interacting with the galaxy. We can never get that back." "But you survived." "We survived," he agrees. "And we learned. Sometimes the hard lessons are the ones that stick. Below us, Earth continues its eternal rotation. Somewhere down there, 17 billion humans go about their lives, working, loving, dreaming. Most of them have never seen another species. Many don't care about galactic politics. They're content to live in their corner of the universe, secure in the knowledge that no one will ever cage them again. Do you think it'll last? I ask. The assembly, I mean? The peace? Reeves shrugs. Does anything last? The Compact thought it would rule forever. 3,000 years ago, we thought we'd be welcomed as equals. Plans change. My empires fall. New things grow in the ruins. That's not very reassuring. He smiles. No, but it's honest. He turns to me. The best we can do is try to leave things a little better than we found them. Make sure the next generation has a chance to make their own mistakes instead of repeating ours. And if someone tries to build another compact, another system of control, Reeves's expression hardens. Then we remind them why that's a bad idea. We stand in comfortable silence, watching Earth turn. Somewhere in the distance, I can see human ships patrolling the system, not hunting, not threatening, just watching, silent guardians protecting their home. You know what I think? Reeves says suddenly. What? I think the galaxy needed to be broken before it could be fixed. The Compact was beautiful in its way, ordered, stable, predictable. But it was also dead, stagnant. It needed someone to come along and shake everything up. And you think humans were meant to do that? No, he says. I think we were just stubborn enough not to die when they tried to kill us. The rest... He gestures at the stars beyond the viewport. The rest is just consequence. I think about that for a long time. 3,000 years. Billions dead. A galaxy transformed, all because one species refused to stay in the cage built for them. History would record it as the fall of the Compact and the rise of the Assembly. They'd debate the ethics of what the humans did, argue about whether the ends justified the means. But I was there. I saw it happen. And I know the truth. The humans didn't destroy the Compact. They just stopped letting it pretend to be something it wasn't. And they held up a mirror to the galaxy and forced us all to look at what we'd become. What we did with that knowledge. That was on us. Thank you, I say quietly. Reeves looks at me, surprised. For what? For not being the monsters we tried to turn you into. He's quiet for a moment. Then he says, We had 3,000 years to think about what kind of species we wanted to be when we finally got free. We could have chosen hatred, could have chosen revenge. Hell, we could have chosen to become just another empire, ruling through fear like the Compact did. Why didn't you? Because, Reeves says softly, somewhere along the way, we realized that the best revenge isn't becoming what your enemies feared you'd be. It's proving they were wrong about you in the first place. He claps me on the shoulder. Come on, I'll buy you a drink. Real Earth whiskey, not that synthesized crap. As we walk away from the viewport, I take one last look at Earth. Somewhere down there, in museums and monuments, they've preserved the names of the 17 billion who died 3,000 years ago. The ones who never got to see their people free. The silent ones, the galaxy had called them. They weren't silent anymore. And we would never forget.